Welcome to the GoOutLiving Attitude, a cancer survivor's journey through health and wellness, helping others search for the tools to bring us a healthier and happier lifestyle. Hi everyone, Jonathan Brandt, GoOutLiving. Our special guest today, Julie Ruelle, is a registered dietitian for over 20 years, and she is now currently the lead U.S. nutritionist on the GoCoCo food app, which we're really excited about talking about. But let's start with general nutrition, especially here in the U.S., because we probably have a lot to talk about.
We sure do, yeah. I'm happy to dive in, anywhere you'd like. I think just right before you and I came on, we were chatting a little bit about sugar and ultra processed foods, which are two topics that we could fill the whole time talking about. So yeah, I'm super happy to jump in with either of those topics and get started there.
Yeah, let's go for ultra processed because I think that's the big word lately, and I don't think people completely understand. So yeah, let's start with that, and then we'll get into definitely the sugar part.
Yeah, ultra processed foods is a great starting point. It's somewhat still a relatively newer term, and it's thrown around a lot. And I think a really good starting point is what is an ultra processed food? What does that even mean? So, not everything that's processed is automatically bad for us. Some processing is necessary to extend shelf life, make sure we have enough food supply for everyone in the world. Processing can be things like turning milk into yogurt or grinding wheat into flour, freezing vegetables, canning vegetables. Those things aren't necessarily bad for our health. Some of it is necessary. But where we cross the line into ultra processed foods is when we're adding things to those food products that aren't actually food. So we're adding chemicals and additives, preservatives, things to make it shiny, flavorings, colorings, things that do not need to be in that food being added to that food. And there are many of them being added to just one single food. There can be 10 ultra processed ingredients in one single food. And those are chemicals. Those aren't recognized as food by our body. So one way I kind of like to think about it is if you wouldn't have it in your home kitchen, if it's not an ingredient in your home kitchen, then it's an ultra processed ingredient. They're created to be inexpensive, highly palatable. They're created to bypass our fullness and satiety cues and make us just eat more and more and more of them, which makes them feel a bit addictive. So basically, they're the cosmetic additives that are added to enhance the appearance, the texture, the flavor, the taste, without adding any nutritional value to our food. And they are quite detrimental to our health.
And addictive.
And addictive. They're designed to be so.
Something you brought up was processed compared to ultra processed. I think that the scale itself is confusing. Could you help us with that part of it as well?
Yeah. So there are necessary additives. So those are used for food preservation, food safety. Those can be things like antioxidants. There are some natural preservatives that are used cooking our food, making it safe for consumption. Those things are all necessary additives. We're trying to avoid cosmetic additives here. So the ones that I was mentioning that are used, they're not adding any nutritional value. They're just adding cosmetic value to the product. Texture, flavor, dyes, colorings, additives, high fructose corn syrup. And to give you some perspective, 73% of all foods available in a supermarket would be considered ultra processed.
And that gets overwhelming. It makes it difficult to pick what we consider a healthy food.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. And there certainly are some ways that we can make it easier. Cooking more at home. That's one easy way. The more control we have, the better. I mentioned 73% of all products in a supermarket are considered ultra processed. There are more of the things that are in the middle of the store. So you might have heard somebody say before, shop the perimeter. That's where you'll find fresh fruits, vegetables, dairy, animal proteins, if you choose. Those are all around the outside, and those are much less likely to be ultra processed. So those colorful, bright boxes with all the marketing that are in the middle, that's where we're going to be finding more of those ultra processed foods.
Why are manufacturers able to create these? I mean, is there, and I don't want to get political, but at what point does it have to be political though? At what point do they say, okay, enough is enough? I know we came out with the red dye thing, and that became extremely controversial, probably mostly because of who said it, but should it really be that controversial? And what can we do about it?
Yeah, so the red dye thing, it's a great example because it's something that needs to happen. So regardless of who says it and who enacts it, I'm glad it's happening, but it's just such a tiny piece of the puzzle. So for anybody who's not familiar, in January of 2026, red number three, which is a synthetic dye, was officially banned by the FDA due to its potential health risks to consumers. However, food manufacturers have until 2027 to remove it from their products. What do you, it's called red dye number three, right? Do you know there's over
Yeah.
40 of them? So what do you think they're going to do? They're just going to use red 2, red 4, red 37. It's not any less harmful than red number 3. So is it symbolic? Potentially. I'm glad they're doing something about one of them, but there's so many more that need to be addressed. The overall big picture needs to be addressed, not just this one dye. Sure, it'll make a difference. Maybe it's bringing more awareness. What are food manufacturers going to do? Are they going to reform? There's over 9,000 products in the USDA database that have this dye. Are they going to reformulate all of those 9,000? It's a lot of unknowns still, and I'm following it closely and curious to see what happens.
Do you believe we're the key to changing everything as far as trying to get these things out of our foods? Or do you think somebody, like I said, in politics is going to actually step up and start doing it? Because truthfully, a lot of this is already banned in other countries.
Yes, a lot of it is already banned in other countries. And that's what's interesting because a lot of big food companies sell to Europe and they sell to the United States. So they're making versions of these foods without the harmful dyes for Europe, but we're getting the version with the harmful dyes. That really bothers me. So who's it going to come from? I think both, to be honest. So consumers are going to need to vote with their wallets, and politicians are going to need to help push the legislation, I think, from the other side. So collaborative.
No, I agree. I 100% agree. We need to stop buying it. And I think we are. I think it's really, if you go to even something like Walmart, they have more and more organic if you really look at it. So I think we're on the right track. We're getting there. Let's jump into sugar.
Sure.
Uh, Let us know how bad it is, because here's the thing. I used to work in the medical industry, and I mean, diabetes has been on the uprise. It's been a while now.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's been quite a while. I mean, over 50% of the population either has prediabetes or is living with diabetes. It's more than half the country is at risk from high sugar. You know, just metabolic standpoint in general, extra sugar is putting us at risk for insulin sensitivity. It's putting us at risk for prediabetes and diabetes itself. Ultra processed foods themselves are also often packed with added sugars. And ultra processed foods actually increase our risk for diabetes, to tie it all together. For every 10% increase in ultra processed foods, you have a 17% increase for risk of type 2 diabetes. So the two topics are just so closely linked together. And that's a study from the Lancet Journal. That's not just some random thing I'm making up to keep harping on how bad ultra processed foods are. So it's really there's a lot to it.
Well, it's more than just diabetes too. It's obesity can be linked back to the sugar as well.
Absolutely, sugar causes a whole host of reactions to take place in our body, and not that all sugar is it's not feasible for most people to completely avoid sugar. What I'm talking about and advocating for us to decrease is added sugars. So things like high fructose corn syrup. When you're looking at the label of a product, let's say we're looking at like a nutrition bar, a protein bar, even. You might see that the first ingredient is rolled oats. That would be great. But the second ingredient is brown rice syrup. And then let's say maybe it's like dates. And then the third ingredient is agave syrup. And then the fourth ingredient is something else. And then the fifth ingredient is high fructose corn syrup. There's so many sugars added to a product, and that's quite a marketing trick that they're doing. They're using 5 different types of added sugar so that it doesn't have to be listed first on the ingredient list, because ingredients are listed by order of weight. So they want you to look at that and be like, oh, this is made out of oats. This is great. And then brown rice syrup. Oh, brown rice. That's okay for me. But really, it's just a whole bunch of added sugars that are in there. And what happens when we eat something that's high in sugar and low in fiber and low in protein is that it causes our blood sugar to jump up quickly. And our body's like, oh, whoa, this isn't good. Let's produce this insulin, a lot of insulin to get the sugar out of the blood and into the cells, which causes a crash in energy levels. And then your body's like, oh, I felt better before. What happened before? Ooh, sugar. Let's get more of that. So it causes a roller coaster of sugar cravings and crashes up and down throughout the day. And putting too much sugar in our bodies puts pressure on our body's metabolic system, and the insulin reactions over time are not as sensitive, and we have more sugar in the blood, which can lead to diabetic concerns.
What is an easy way to eliminate sugar, the excess sugar in your daily life?
I wish there was an easy answer. It's not easy. Sugar is a bit of an acquired taste. So the more we have it, the more we want it. So I encourage people to let's find something you're doing every day that has a lot of sugar. And let's figure out how we can start gradually decreasing that. Or some people are willing to just cut it out. Others need to decrease it. So for example, I was speaking with somebody just the other day, and he said, I don't have a lot of added sugar. So we started going through the day. First thing he told me was I put some sugar in my coffee. So I said, okay, how much sugar? Oh, only a tablespoon. I said, a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, right? That's a lot. Let's cut that down to 2 teaspoons because it's an acquired taste. So I said, it'll taste a little different at first, but after a week, you won't miss it. Then we'll cut it down to 1 teaspoon. Then you let me know if you'd be willing to cut it out entirely. So sometimes a gradual approach is best. Sometimes rip off the Band-Aid approach is best. But I think step 1 is identifying where those added sugars in your diet are coming from. And step 2 is, are you an all or nothing person, or are you a let's step it down kind of person? Everybody's a little different, but we can all benefit from finding those sources of sugar in our diet and decreasing them.
I think this is a great place to bring in the app because, like I had mentioned before, me and my dad, we got into an app lately and he's just blown away. And they're all different. I understand that. But maybe explain GoCoCo because I think it's extremely important for especially what we're talking about with sugar and diabetes.
Yeah, so GoCoCo stands for Go Conscious Consumer. So we want to help people make better choices in the supermarket. So it's a scanner app. You scan the barcode of any food that you already have at home or you're considering purchasing, and it gives you a score 1 through 10 on how healthy or not so much that food is. And it takes into account how much added sugar is in there, how many ultra processed ingredients. And 2 really good things I think about the app is, one is it tells you why it gets the score it gets. So is it the added sugar? Is it the ultra processed ingredients? And if it is the ultra processed ingredients, it actually tells you what they are and what they're used for. And then another great thing is it gives you product alternatives. So if you scan one of those things, like I was talking about, like a nutrition bar, and it shows up telling you there's a lot of ultra processed ingredients in there and it gets a low score, it's going to give you other nutrition bars that score much higher. So you can take a look at the 2 packages yourself and decide which one's going to be the better choice for you and your family. So we're not trying to tell people what to do. We're just trying to give you the information so that you can make the choice that's best for you. And I love that you said you're using it with your dad and that you guys are having fun using it. I often have a lot of people tell me to use it with their kids, and the kids love to run around the store or run around their pantry and scan things. And it is a great tool. It's a great learning experience for parents to be able to have a conversation and say, like, well, see what's in this product. Maybe we won't have this one. We'll choose this one instead because this one only has 5 ingredients instead of 25 ingredients. And um, it's a better choice.
For us, it was life altering. It was, to be honest, when we first started it, it was depressing. When you think you're doing something right, and then it was like a slap in the face. We are so off. It was unbelievable. I mean, something as simple as bread or, you know, the cereals, everything. It was it was tough to take. But like you said, what is great about your app also is the alternatives. It gives you something that you can go to, because I think that's what scares a lot of people. Okay, we know this isn't good for us, but what is? So that's a great added bonus for that.
Yeah, and another thing about the app is there's also lists. So you can search by store or by type of food. So to your point, bread, like there's a whole bread category, and you can see all the breads that scan 10 out of 10. So they don't have any ultra processed ingredients, they're higher in fiber, they don't have added sugars. You can see cereals, snack bars, milks, yogurts, all of the things that score highest by category, or you can do it by store. No matter which big box store you want to shop at, like Target, Walmart, Trader Joe's, Publix, regionally, they're all in there with the best products per category. So we really are trying to show there are things that you can eat. A lot of times, like you said, people do get really overwhelmed, and when they come to me and they're like, there's nothing I can eat anymore. Well, I just give up. And it's like, no, there's actually a lot of things you can still eat. And I'm not aiming for people to be 100% perfect. There's room for little treats here and there, somebody's birthday, something like that. But for a majority of our lives, what we're stocking our kitchens with, the meals we're making every day, the meals we're packing for our family, let's try to make much better choices more of the time, because it adds up. Consistency is key. Ultra processed foods are linked to 32 different health conditions, including diabetes, obesity, and even depression. Cutting back on these ultra processed foods is something we can do to make a dramatic improvement in our health.
Yeah, and do it before it's too late. Me and my wife, as everybody knows, we battled cancer. We could probably look back at the last, 50 years of me eating horribly and drinking horribly, and it probably had a huge impact on where I'm at right now. And we don't want that. We want people to find out earlier. Having the app gets you out of some excuses as well. You can't say, well, I just don't know. It gives it to you right there.
And it's fun, like we said. There's a new feature in there too, where you can take a picture of any meal that you have, and it tells you what percentage of that meal is real food and what percentage of it is ultra processed. And it's really accurate. I've been testing it. I've been trying to trick it. I took a picture of a whole coconut, and it was like, oh, that looks like a delicious hydrating coconut water you're going to enjoy straight from the coconut. I was like, how did it know?
That's amazing. Well, and then you brought up kids. My son, he can run around going, oh yeah, too much sugar. He's 6 years old, and that's probably a good point to get into, because we might have done it wrong for so long for ourselves, but it's not too late for us, and it's definitely not too late for our kids. And this is a good way to get them started on understanding a healthy way of life, a healthy way of eating.
I think I love what you're saying there, because the kids thing really, really bothers me. So a lot of these ultra processed foods are marketed towards children, and that's what bothers me. So over in California, they actually passed a law to ban 6 synthetic dyes from schools due to their known link to behavioral issues in children. Uh, so these dyes have no nutritional value. They're just used to make food more appealing visually to kids. So we at GoCoCo looked at the USDA database, Um, Out of the 400,000 foods in the database, 12% of everything in that database contains one of those banned dyes. And what's worse is that most of them are in foods that are targeted towards kids. So 2 out of 3 candies contain one, 1 out of 3 sodas, 1 out of 4 snacks overall. And then, maybe as a parent, you think, okay, well, I don't let my kids have soda. Half of all sports drinks have one of these banned dyes in it as well. So, again, I don't know what's going to happen. Fragmented landscape. Is sports drinks going to reformulate only for California? Are they just not going to sell in California schools? Because that's what the law actually is it just can't be sold in schools. But it's interesting, and it really bothers me that the kids are the ones that are getting a huge portion of these dyes, these chemicals.
Well, and I was saying I have to do snacks for my kid for soccer. I'm like, I don't even know what to do because, well, I know what to do, but it'll be interesting to see what parents say because it's not what most of them bring. But again, if we want to stop the obesity, stop the diabetes, stop the heart disease, the cancer, and we can go on, we need to take it seriously.
Yeah, we do. There are a lot of things that we can eat that are not filled with dyes and additives and chemicals. And even for kids, a banana, it's in a perfectly portioned snack for sports. Little clementine, mandarin oranges, those are perfect as well. Certain nuts and seeds, and we can make our own trail mixes. And there are a lot of nutrition bars out there that if you scan with GoCoCo, you'll see they get a really high score, and that's because they're made out of real fruits and nuts versus um, brown rice syrup and food colorings and dyes. So I think it's great that the conversations like this are happening, and I do hear them happening more often. The new dietary guidelines came out this year, and I think, again, no matter what you think about who said them and how they were sort of presented, there are some things in there that I think are beneficial information. So it's less change than people think, really. They just kind of flipped it on its head, which made all the marketing headlines and everything. But one thing that is in there that will make a difference for kids is it specifically says we have to limit highly processed foods, added sugars, and artificial additives. And why that matters for kids is that it has to do with federal feeding programs, such as school lunch programs, military and veteran meals, WIC, SNAP, other child and adult nutrition programs have to follow these guidelines now. So that's a shift, in my opinion, in the right direction, regardless of if the pyramid is upside down or right side up or however it's facing. I'm glad for that part of it.
I did an episode on it, and I waited. I I wanted to do it right away, but I waited. And I just couldn't understand why we make everything so political and why it was so controversial. And basically my point was, did we really follow the other one? Are we going to follow this? Yeah, I hope so to an extent, because I think it means well, but stop overthinking it.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I like about it is that federal programs use this as guidance. So the fact that we're talking about ultra processed foods for the first time in accordance with it, I think is the takeaway for me, the key takeaway.
Oh, it's huge. Right from the beginning of the school year, because we were talking about kids as well, I looked at the menu and I'm like, not happening. And I've been making his lunch from the beginning. I get they're probably trying, but it's going to take a while.
Absolutely. It's going to take years.
So, I mean, if you can do it yourself at home, do it. Again, the kids, you're going to see a difference in the kids themselves. I honestly think you can see it now, the ones with so-called ADHD, or my son comes home and says somebody was acting up and all. And I'm like, I bet you can bring it back to the food.
The food's not helping.
No, it's not at all. And I've heard from so many people, whether it's functional doctors or coaches or nutritionists, it affects us in a way that we don't even completely understand. We
Hmm.
just know it's really bad for us.
We do. And, like I mentioned with the California thing, like it is known behavioral issues in children associated to those dyes. So again, it's not that we're just picking on these things. There actually really are links and real risks of having all of these ultra processed foods. And something you brought up earlier is it's certainly leading to obesity. So these ultra processed foods, like I said before, turn off our satiety clues. So whole, natural, real foods that have fiber in them naturally, protein in them naturally, healthy fats. That combination is satiating. It makes us full. It signals our brain, like, oh, we've eaten. We can stop eating now. But these ultra processed foods are full of sugar and chemicals that help bypass those signals in our brain. They're designed to do that. And you know, the whole slogan, bet you can't eat just one. No, bet you can't eat just one bag is what the slogan should be. They just prompt you to eat and eat and eat until the product is gone.
I had a doctor, he put it perfectly. He goes, when have you known anybody that overate on chicken? Especially a chicken breast, it just doesn't happen because it fills us up. It's the nutrition we need, and that's it.
Yeah.
Something else you brought up, diets. Again, I think there's been a huge change or shift in how we're looking at that. But at one point, everything was about the food as far as the boxes said healthy. It
Mhm.
says this diet, that diet. Well, a lot of that is still processed food, isn't it?
Yes. And I don't know that it's changed so much. We just might use the word diet less. So now, when I was saying something earlier, I made a point to specifically say foods that naturally contain fiber or naturally contain protein, because those are two big trends right now. It's just to add fiber or protein to everything. And not everything needs to have fiber or protein added to it. I don't think we need protein water. I think we should drink water and eat protein rich foods. So I still consider those things to be ultra processed. You're adding protein to water. No.
I know. It's, yeah, it's silly. It really is. Something I've been doing lately, talking about diets, we talk about the Mediterranean diet, for instance. It's not as hard as people think. And it's, again, using whole foods. Something I've been doing a lot of too is canned mackerel in like olive oil. And I think it has peppers and it's the Mediterranean style olives. It's a very simple way to get what you actually need in a meal.
And it goes right along with what I was saying about how processing isn't inherently bad. So taking a fish and putting it in a can so that we have a longer time that we can eat it and preserving it with olive oil and maybe lemon, I bet on that can everything is a food you can pronounce. If you scanned it with GoCoCo, it should get a high score. And those are not the things that I'm against. Preserving our food supply, making it so more people can get access to healthy food. I'm for that. So that's why frozen vegetables, canned vegetables, just watch the sodium, other additives. I'm all in favor of those things. I'm just against anything, let's say, that fish was then combined with, chemicals that would make it not so healthy. But I know most canned mackerels are just in olive oil with spices and seasonings, and that's a great heart healthy, high protein, monounsaturated fat source.
Yeah, and I used to do sardines, but good luck finding them. So I think people are catching on to that. That's why I had to go to mackerel, which I really like. But yeah, good luck getting it on Amazon because it's months out.
I walked
um,
past an entire sardine store in Manhattan when I was visiting the other week. So sardines have definitely, I'd been in Portugal a few years before, and sardine stores were everywhere in Portugal. That was a big deal. And this was the first time I had seen anything quite like it in the US. It was a whole store front of sardines. So
that's cool.
it is cool. There were people in there too. I was peeking in. I'm like, is it busy? If people caught on, so so I think you're right, and that's
No,
that's processing I'm in favor of.
Yeah, no, I love it. I really love it. Um, Before we go to counting calories, explain how that is just it doesn't matter. Because this is another one from my dad, so hopefully my dad's listening. It's
Hi,
not
Dad.
about the calories.
It's not all about the calories. I'll say that. There's so much more that goes into it. And when I work with people, I would say a huge percentage of the time, I'm not talking about calories. There's special occasions where calories can matter, but for the most part, I'm talking about food quality. If you're eating high quality, non processed, low added sugar, whole foods, Mediterranean style, like you said, you don't need to count calories because, like you said, chicken breast is filling. I'll have people ask me, like, oh, but I heard carrots are high in sugar. I shouldn't eat carrots. I don't know a single person who has become overweight, obese, hasn't lost weight because of carrots. So if you're eating whole foods a majority of the time, that is in itself a weight maintenance strategy without having to worry about counting every calorie that you do consume.
Yeah, I mean it's that simple. Again, I think we overthink it, but yeah, there's a lot of flashy stuff out there for everybody. If somebody is coming and watching this, and what is the best route for them to go to start to become healthier with what they eat?
I think one thing that I've sort of alluded to is we might be a little in doubt about what we do eat already. So, the example I gave earlier, which is not an uncommon example, is a gentleman told me, I don't eat any added sugar. And then we started going through his diet, and the very first thing he told me had added sugar. And that's an obvious example. As we went on through the conversation, we determined he bakes a lot. Well, that's sugar and refined flour as well. So I think step one is taking an honest look at what you're actually eating. And if you don't have somebody like me to go through with that, you can use the GoCoCo app. Scan what you normally eat for breakfast, scan lunch, scan dinner, see what kind of scores you're getting. Use the option on there to find healthier alternatives for the different categories. You can even take pictures of your meals and it'll tell you what percentage of your meal is processed versus real food. So I think really truly step number one is taking a good honest look at what you are eating and then kind of figuring out, well, what meal is it that might be the biggest challenge for me, or what snack time, or am I not eating a meal entirely because I don't have time? So let's find something quick and easy that you can eat at that time that's also not an ultra processed food. So really, step one is taking a look at where you're at currently, and then that will lead us to figure out what kind of positive changes we can make. And I like to go step by step. I don't expect people to overhaul everything at once. And that's why in that previous example, we started with the morning coffee. That's something you do every single day. Let's make that swap. If somebody could identify, they're going to Starbucks on the way to take the kid to school and they're getting a 60 gram of sugar coffee drink. Make your coffee at home. You're going to save $5 a day and you're going to save more than the daily allotted sugar in one swap. And that change is enough to make a big difference in your health.
Is it fair to say that the GoCoCo app is definitely for people with diabetes and to help them, but it can really help anybody?
Yeah, we started out with the mission to help everybody. And what we actually found, because we poll our users all the time, is that we were having a lot of people living with diabetes using our app. So it actually happened in reverse. We created an app for everyone. We found out that people living with diabetes were getting the most value from our app. So we started adding more features for them. So we now have a diabetes alert that you can opt in or opt out of. So if you scan a food and it's something that is very high in added sugar, low in fiber, it will tell you diabetes alert and tell you why. But the app is still absolutely for anybody. During the onboarding, you select what your main concern is, whether it's weight maintenance, whether it's just wanting to cut back on ultra processed foods, if it's cardiovascular health, if it's diabetes. So truly, it is for everyone. We kind of by accident created something that was very beneficial for people living with diabetes. A very happy accident there. So that's where we've put a lot of our focus into is in making new features and making it even more user friendly for people living with diabetes. But absolutely, it is for everyone.
And where do they find it?
So we GoCoCo.app is the website address. It's on the Google and also Apple stores. You can get it there. There's a free version of the app. There's also a premium version of the app that has access to a lot more features. And we are able to give your users 1 year free access to the premium version. And we'll put the code for that, I believe, in the show notes. We'll figure out what the code for that will be.
Well, that's great. Yeah, what I always do is do a post along with the blog, so we'll definitely get it in there. And yeah, it'll be on my website for anybody and everybody to use. So we really appreciate that. Like I said, these I've been using a different one, but I'm gonna jump to this one. Just it's helped so much in my life, and I know it can help in others because it takes away excuses. You now know.
You know.
Yeah, but there's alternatives, which is even better. And that again, it will help with anybody that wants to get on that right path. And here's the thing, everybody is going through it, aren't they? It's not just you, it's literally everybody.
Yeah, we all want to be the healthier, best version of ourselves for whatever personal reason that might be. Uh, there's room for all of us to make improvements. And when I work with people, they'll be like, oh, I feel great. There's nothing wrong with me. And then they start making all these dietary changes and they'll be like, whoa, I didn't know I could feel like this. Like, this is what you're supposed to feel like when you don't consume tons of added sugar and ultra processed foods. So there's usually some more optimizing that we can do and get you feeling like the best version of yourself by making better food choices. We truly are what we eat. And what we've been discussing today is one big piece of the puzzle to feeling better and adding healthy years.
Oh, I totally agree. Uh, Again, a benefit for anybody and everybody. And if you have kids specifically, this will help you determine all the fancy stuff is not good for them. So, uh, everybody, I mean, GoCoCo app. I mean, it's that simple. Give it a try. Julie Ruelle, absolute pleasure.
Yeah, it's been great speaking with you too. If anybody wants to, reach out with any questions or comments or anything, they can find me, Julie, at GoCoCo.app. We're always happy to talk to anyone further. Once you start using it, I'd love to hear your feedback. Maybe you can have me back on and tell me about it.
Yeah, I'd love that. We'll definitely keep in touch. All right. Again, we really appreciate you on. And all of you out there, we really appreciate you listening and watching. And find the attitude, keep the attitude, go out living. Bye, everyone.